Matthew Molpus here with True Wellness, and we're live with episode 2 of Food Biz Talks. I'm so excited today to have Mitch Hagney from Local Sprout Food Hub. Thank you so much for joining us. And I just want to dive into a little bit more about your background and your journey and kind of what prepared you for where you're at today.
Sure. So I'm currently running a company called Local Sprout here in San Antonio, and what we do is produce crops directly. So we have a hydroponic farm in downtown San Antonio. And then we also have a resource that we call the Local Sprout Food Hub. In it, there's space available, there's infrastructure, cold storage, 3-compartment sinks, grease traps, security, internet, things that food businesses can come and use together. And inside that space, there's about 12 different businesses. And then we also go to different restaurants and we consult and we help build them gardens. We call it the Edible Landscaping Program. So that's kind of what we do right now.
That's so cool. Tell me a little bit more about your background. I want to know about little Mitch. You know, where'd you grow up? You know, can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm from New Hampshire, and I went and camped and went into the wilderness a lot. And up north, there's a lot of,
that's so cool.
of woods, and that's I think where a lot of the initial inspiration and affection for environmental problems came from. But
awesome.
Where I really started becoming, I think, who I am is in high school. I joined the debate team, and in it I traveled across the country almost every other weekend to debate about federal policy problems, like just kind of macro level, what's happening in the world, what should be done about it. And in the process of that, we kind of analyzed what problems we thought were important. And so I always figured out that the confluence of problems that are probable and problems that have a high magnitude tend to be environmental. There's problems with high magnitude, which are like nuclear conflict or like pandemic disease or something else that have low probability, but a high mag potentially affect lots and lots of people. And then there's problems like poverty or just like systemic disease, things like that we know are happening but potentially aren't macro scale things that'll disrupt the entire planet. To me, the things that I think are very, very likely that are also pretty potentially catastrophic are environmental problems. So that's what I chose. I wanted to work on.
That's so awesome. So along that way, kind of growing up in the wilderness and being incredibly connected environment, what do you think prepared you the most, or what are some of the biggest challenges that you face kind of beginning your journey? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, there was things that I became prepared for. I think I grew up in a really like communicative environment where figuring out how to relate to other people was really important. My family had a lot of productive arguments, I think, and then there's also things that did not prepare me at all for being an entrepreneur. Like currently, I am my own plumber, my own electrician, my own like HVAC specialist, and it would have been nice in my youth to have accumulated any of those technical skills.
Sure.
But I was trained in kind of like an academic or like a liberal arts context, and so when I finally became an entrepreneur, constantly getting my hands dirty, that was something that was a little challenging. Something that did kind of prepare me to do that is that once I decided I want to work on environmental and agricultural problems, I farmed in all sorts of places. I farmed in Massachusetts, I farmed in Kentucky, Arizona, and I lived in Costa Rica for 6 months. And in those places, wow. I think I got...
What was Costa Rica like? And just being able to farm and...
It was beautiful and delicious, but it also, to me, it showed off a world that was a lot more responsible when it came to environmental
really?
Problems. The Costa Rica is almost zero emissions right now. They're extremely conservative when it comes to water, and they're really, really careful about their land use. Almost a third of the total land in Costa Rica are national parks.
Wow.
And a huge amount of the revenue that comes into the country is from ecotourism. So I knew that environmental problems were something I wanted to work on. I put myself in Costa Rica partially just to figure out what does a country look like that really values these things, whereas the United States I don't think is there.
So for those of you that don't know, Mitch is not only owner of Local Sprout Food Hub, he's also a hydroponic farmer, the president of the Food Policy Council, and so he has an incredible job at hand and does a great job at where he's at. And along the way, I think he's learned so much in regards to sustainability, and I feel like that's very powerful, and we should talk a little bit more about that. Specifically, how do you think we can address sustainability with the food industry? with our audience?
I think a lot of people they think about energy and water most of the time when they think about environmental problems. The second largest contributor to greenhouse gases on the planet is agriculture after electricity production. And that comes from a bunch of different places. A lot of folks don't know that excess fertilizer use causes nitrous oxide to volatilize into the atmosphere. It's an extremely powerful greenhouse gas. Methane that comes from both livestock like cattle, but also rice paddies that use a lot of fertilizers is an extremely powerful greenhouse gas as well. And then the transportation network that gets food from place to place across continents that also produces a large amount of carbon dioxide as large pieces of equipment are moving. But then aside from the climate question, there's lots and lots of problems that agriculture is causing in terms of what ecology looks like. There's fertilizer runoff is damaging bays and rivers, and there's soil erosion. There's subsistence, actually, where the ground will collapse when water is overused, because water that's beneath the surface of the soil is necessary to hold things up. That's happening in California. And we just are getting rid of a lot of the water and polluting a lot of the things that we rely on. We also are killing important pollinators to the agricultural system by using pesticides and decreasing our likely yields in the future. So there's a lot of problems that agriculture and the food industry has. Waste as well. I'm just going to leave that there. That's a big topic as well.
Sure.
But how do we deal with these?
We probably need to talk about that in a whole episode on itself of waste.
Yes,
and how folks can take advantage of that opportunity and also be more aware of that component. So
I try to be positive when it comes to environmental issues, because not only can we avoid problems, but we can create a better world than the one we have now if we start to think about resource efficiency and things like that. So what should food businesses be thinking about when they're thinking about how to make their business more sustainable towards natural resources, but also more sustainable in terms of their financial model?
So I'm an entrepreneur. I have a food business in the food industry, and it's tough, right? It takes a special breed. It takes a special individual that is ready to own it, but being real with it's tough, and this is challenging. What do you think is kind of one of the biggest challenges that you faced in your journey, and how did you overcome that?
So when you're a startup or a small business, one of your primary challenges is that you have to survive day to day. And when it comes to creating good environmental solutions, you have to think really long term. So how do you reconcile those two things? For example, I know that I'm spending money on electricity every month, and I know that if I invest in solar, then I can make my money back in 6 years. But do I make the gamble? Do I know that my business is going to be around for 6 years? And is that something that potentially I can do? If I make it past 6 years, now I have free electricity, or if I have subtenants that I'm selling that electricity to someone else. But it requires long-term thinking. Waste questions like, you have organic waste. Can you use that in a productive way? I personally have a garden in the front of the food hub where I produce a lot of herbs and a couple vegetables.
And just so the viewers understand that, organic waste specifically.
Organic waste being banana peels or coffee grounds or things like that. So food waste that otherwise would go straight into the landfill could potentially be used for creating more value for your business. It is a resource. There's nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, all important elements in order to grow crops. And potentially to grow insects. Well, one waste scheme that I've heard about recently coming out of Austin from Robert Nathan Allen and Little Herds is an idea to use organic waste in order to cultivate black soldier flies, and then to get those to poultry farmers so that they can get an extra source of protein to produce better eggs out of waste. But these are resources.
That's really cool.
I think and we can go through more examples, but I think that the basic thesis that's useful to push onto food businesses is that everything that you are wasting is something that you acquired on purpose. That means that it has value. If that's plastic, if it's cardboard, if it's pallets, if it's organic waste, if it's gases. In the food hub, we have a fermentation specialist called Badge's Food Company. Because the fermentation process produces carbon dioxide, we are starting to ferment inside my hydroponic shipping container. Reason being that carbon dioxide can increase the acceleration of how quickly plants grow. Now, that's a resource
That's really cool.
is invisible and potentially would just go into the atmosphere and disappear. Most folks don't even think about that as an asset, but as a farmer, I know.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your shipping container? I mean, it's
Sure,
so
yeah.
awesome for those who haven't visited.
So, about an acre's worth of crops are being produced within a 40-foot shipping container. It's stacked up vertically so that there are lights hanging down, and pretty much every square foot of grow space.
Those are LED.
There's 10 plants.
Lights,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, LEDs, and I do have solar panels, so it's running up.
That's awesome.
It's very, very environmentally friendly. No pesticides, no herbicides, and I use about 1% of the water that normal farms use because I don't have runoff or really serious evaporation.
Wow.
And I can grow all year long, so I can grow out of season. So I can grow basil in the wintertime, I can grow kale in the summertime, which here in San Antonio you can't really do outside.
And it's so crazy. The first time I tasted Mitch's kale as a nutritionist, I was like, this is some bad to the bone kale. Like, it's so much water, it has so much hydration. It's incredible because you think that, it's bass backwards. It's just incredible. I always tell people, the nutritional value of a plant, you can always tell by how good it tastes, and it's crazy to me, and a whole nother topic, but why our kids don't like things like tomatoes and vegetables. They don't taste good. They're so bland.
Yeah.
They don't have the flavor component because they don't have the health coming from the soil, the nutritional value of it being a healthy plant. But anyways, I just kind of want to, I'm a food business, whether I'm a manufacturer or